let me introduce the fabulous team behind Climate Voting Records Toronto. So I think we have Anna, Rakeen, John, Yen, Mitch, and Adam. Good, got that right. So they're going to speak to us about what they've been up to. It's your go-to interactive tool for tracking how Toronto City Council votes on crucial climate and environmental policies. So the team behind it are passionate about climate action and government transparency. It's a diverse group, including researchers, data analysts, a UX designer, web developers, policy advocates, and community organizers. And they are all working together to track and present Toronto City Council's climate-related voting records in an accessible way. So I invite them now to come and join me on the stage to take it away. Please, a round of applause for our speakers. Okay, I have stopped sharing. And if you would like to share your one there, you can have the mic. I will go and sit down somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get started. Hello. This project kind of started here halfway through at least. It's a Climate Fast project, which is a not-for-profit community-run climate group here in Toronto. But a lot of the developers and people on this team actually are from Civic Tech. So it's kind of a full circle moment to present here. So the name of the website is the Climate Voting Records Toronto website, and it's public now, so people can use it and you can check it out afterwards. But maybe we'll start off by introduction. So my name is Anna. I volunteer and do climate action at Climate Fest, and I am researcher and coordinator of this project.
I'm John. I'm a UX designer, and I did some design work on this project.
Hi, my name is Adam. I am a freelance web developer based here in Toronto, and I was part of the development team. So I worked on a few of the pages that you see here, along with Mitch and a few other people as well.
My name is Yen, and I'm a part of the focus groups and the research team as well.
My name is Rakeen. I'm a data analyst. I help with some of the data and research side of the project.
Adam introduced me, but I'm Mitch, another web developer.
All right. So the goal of the website, next slide, please. The goal of the website is very simple. It's to be able to track and see how climate change is being voted on in the city of Toronto, specifically City Council. Next slide. So a lot of people here already know this, but just so we're on the same page, Toronto has 25 wards, and there is one councillor per ward. And generally how policies get passed is there's a two-step process. So first it goes through committee, and that's where there's a few councillors there. It gets deputed, it's debated there, and if it passes, then it goes to the second stage, which is City Council. And then it gets debated there a little bit more. And if it passes in City Council, which is where you have the 25 councillors plus the mayor voting on it, then it becomes a passed policy. So how did this project come about, and what is it trying to do? So some of you here are probably already familiar with the Toronto Meeting Management Information System. And it's this City of Toronto, it's on the City of Toronto website, and it has so much information on policies. If you ever want to know what's happening on a policy, you can go there and get all the information you need, but it is very overwhelming and not very user-friendly. From a climate perspective, from a climate perspective, however, a lot of us as advocates, we use the news to keep up to date with policies at the City of Toronto, but it's already kind of very selective what we see in the media. So we wanted to see like the full expansive list of policies that's on the City of Toronto website, but not be overwhelmed by it. So the Climate Voting Records website is kind of that in between where it can deal with it filters through a lot of the information, but it's not as limited as just keeping up to date with the media. So very quickly, the timeline for this project roughly had 3 stages. So coming up with a clear purpose, building a team, doing some jurisdictional research on similar websites that already exist around the world, and then doing the design and the layout for the website, and then finally the coding and development. So the next part is research.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So I'll go through the process we follow to identify the key climate-related items from the City Council voting records. The first step was to pull the data from the Toronto Open Data Portal. Interesting. So when we pulled it out, the data set had over 1,800 items of voting records from City Council. And unfortunately, we couldn't just search climate on the data set and find all the climate-related items. So what we had to do is we had to come up with some key terms that we could search the items with that had like relevant items. So like things like transit, cycling, flooding, etc. So the key terms, we did this with in conjunction with other climate groups who were more like experts in their field, so like CycleTO, TDC writers, etc. And then once we had the list of key items, we filtered the data set using those items to find the climate-related ones. So and then before we could find all the items, we had to clean the data set. So making sure the data set had consistent characters, making sure we were only taking votes by City Council and not by committees, boards, and other subgroups. And we also had to clean duplicate records in the data set. Yeah, okay. No, not the postal code yet, sorry. These are the older slides. And then, okay, so when we found all the key climate-related items, we had to, the research team went through all the items and went through the Toronto Meeting Management Information System to understand the context behind each of the items. And we had to summarize the items to make sure that they contained, sorry, I'm a little like lost in the thing because the slides were edited last time. So like, these are not the exact slides. But yeah, so we had to research the items from TIMIS to understand all the context behind the items. And we also had to include text verbatim from the policy documents so that they, we didn't misrepresent any of the official policy items there. I think that's it for the data set itself. Moving on to postal code. The second piece of data that we had to pull was the postal code data, as we wanted to automatically identify a councillor based on the postal codes provided by the user in the letter generator, which will be shown by the development team later. We thought this would be an easy task to find postal codes data set along with their wards and councillors. This wasn't. So we had to find some other different data sets of postal codes, city councillors, and wards, and join them on their coordinates together. And we were able to come up with a list of about 50,000 postal codes. And then, so that when a user puts their postal code into the letter generator template, we can identify their ward and councillor automatically, and so they can say contact their councillor for any item that they wish to do so. Now I'll pass it on to John, who will go over the layout and design process.
Thanks, Rakeen. Yeah, so for the design, I had the task of coming up what the website would look like, but sort of more importantly, how user would interact, how it would function. This process is important in order to give structure to the devs and make sure that we're not doing a lot of rework or wasted time, and we all have direction, and mostly making things more concrete. So yeah, I started with this, I call it object mapping. I guess you could kind of think of it as a lightweight data modeling. So basically just going through all the research, talking to the team, started with noun foraging, just collecting a bunch of terms that keep coming up that might be objects. And here I was just refining, just trying to find out what were the core objects that we were going to show, like the core things that would make up the data set. And here we kind of narrowed down on motions. We were calling it motions then, but items in the site and councillors. Those are kind of the big ones. There were other candidates there, but we had to sort of sift it down and discard it and simplify a little bit. So that was just sort of the start of it. And this is just for my benefit, basically, to wrap my head around it. But from here, I was able to move on to sketching. And these are just quick sketches that I could do, lo-fi sketches of all the pages on the website, just going through. So basically from the object map or all those sticky notes, those are like the early version of the page, and then this is like the slightly more refined version of the page where I'm just going through it. And yeah, I can go to the next slide. I just started with like the smallest representation of each of our items here. So have kind of like a mini card, a table row card, a grid card version of it, and then worked on building up the pages from those smaller elements because they can be nested inside each other. Here, I was just trying to make sure that I was preserving the layout as you go from the smallest size to the larger size. So there's continuity and it just helps the user identify it, and also trying to keep them distinct so that we're consistent in making sure that items don't look like councillors and vice versa. From there, I was able to move on to site mapping. And this was like a really rough, but still useful outline of the site. Again, like with the lo-fis, I was sketching out what the pages would look like. But here, just making the connections explicit. And this is able to give us direction as a team of, okay, this is what we're actually going to build, mostly for scope and how it's all going to connect together, and give the devs an idea of what we're talking about and something to discuss. And then from there, I just did the wireframes. And this was basically going back to the lo-fi sketches and cleaning it up into a representation that's a little bit more representative of the site. And here, just getting through real data, making sure it can catch all those issues that come up when we actually populate it with something as much as possible, something that's kind of like a starting point for the devs to go. And this was something that we could use for constructive criticism and feedback. And for that, I'll give it to Yen.
Thanks, John. All right, so once John designed the website and once the web development team created the website, we conducted focus groups to gather user feedback. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that the website is accessible, easy to navigate, and comprehensive. So for that, we had two main focus groups, one with climate organizations and one with the general public. So to achieve our goal, we combined structured website testing activities with mostly open-ended questions. And what we really wanted to find out was what's missing, is there anything confusing about the site, and what other improvements we can make. Additionally, we also emphasized on transparency and inclusivity because we wanted people to be as honest as possible about their feedback. Next slide. Okay, so we focused on three main sections of the site: the homepage, the voting record section, and the what can I do section. So in terms of the homepage, what I wanted to find out from participants was the first impression of the website, the design of the homepage, the map, how easy it is to read and interact with content on the website. And in terms of the voting record section, I wanted to find out participants' experience of searching for a counselor and viewing a counselor's voting history, how well participants understood a climate-related item, and how sufficient the information was. And finally, in terms of the what can I do section, also known as the letter template generator, we wanted to find out if participants had any challenges with data entry. We wanted to know if the letter was effective and comprehensive, as well as any other privacy and security concerns. Slide. So here are some of the feedback that we received. So I would say the first one on the top left will be the most important one, the most common feedback, which is making the first column of the scorecard static. Secondly, we've been told to add legends, color coding, as well as other sorting and filtering options. Add a tally of votes for each counselor and on the scorecard. Add features that would notify users about upcoming votes. Provide more context about the votes and why they matter. And finally, ensure the website is fully functional and user-friendly on mobile devices. Slide. All right, so I want to take a quick moment here to thank everyone who contributed to the focus group sessions. And this actually includes Civic Tech Toronto as well. So thank you very much, as well as the other climate organizations you can see here on the screen. The website wouldn't be the way it is today without you all, so thank you. And with that being said, I'll pass this on to Mitch.
Great. Can the camera come over here so I can control the slides? Oh, there it is. I've been looking for it. So with all this great research and design, And the focus group feedback, the development team, Adam and I really had a lot of information to start work and work efficiently on the website. And so we started out by building out what we call a content model to take all those different types of content that have been identified in the research and design and actually model them out inside a tool called Web Command. And these are the different types of content that we modeled out. And looking at just one of them, the main one, items, we broke it into the different fields of information that we needed to collect. So an item ID, a name, a voting date, and who it's proposed by, and so on and so forth. And once we had all those content models built out, or all the content types, we were able to take all the data that the research team pulled together, like those 50,000 postal codes, and actually import them from spreadsheets and different data sources into Web Command, where we could then work with them as part of the web development project. And so we did that for the postal codes. We did it for the wards, which we pulled from Toronto Open Data, which had all the sort of area polygons for all of the different wards. So we were able to pull those in to the system as well. And then likewise, the most important part were the voting records themselves, which also thankfully are available on Toronto Open Data's website. So we were able to pull in that information and populate any of the data that we could from the voting records, which included the councillors, the items, the high-level item information, and the actual votes. So which councillors voted on yes or no or absent on each item. And then the research team also populated some additional information for each item that really took sort of manually reviewing and summarizing those items. So it's kind of what ends up in the system is a combination of automatically imported and manually refined information. And so this is an example of a voting record. And actually in the system, we have a process that runs every 15 minutes, and it revisits the Toronto Open Data voting record data and pulls in any new updates or other information that's available. So now we'll take a live look at the website. That is the URL, and I have to figure out how to pull this up in the browser. Oop. There we go. All right, so here's the website. When you land on the homepage, you're taken to a map that shows all of the wards that we talked about importing. And it merges all of the information about the voting records to give you a sort of color-coded look at all the wards and what the councillors in those wards are voting against climate-related issues. So we can see sort of this red one. There's a lot of no votes. Yeah, more than all the others. So you can click on a ward and actually see that councillor and then review all of the items and what their votes were on those items and filter those items. The voting records section of the website allows you to view the same information but by councillor. So you can view all the councillors and filter them or search for them and then see their votes. Oops, sorry, the mouse is really touchy here. Then you can view by item, so you can search through items. You can filter by the categories of the items to filter it down, distill it down by cohort and which ones were carried or lost. And then the final option, the scorecard, is probably my favorite view, which gives you this sort of giant matrix of all of the items and all of the councillors. And so you can see, you know, from a bird's eye view, what all of the issues are and what they're voting on. And that covers the voting records section. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Adam to talk about summary.
Sure. Should I not move over there so you can? There we go. Yeah. All right. So even after manually refining and just cleaning up a lot of the data that's fed into the website, the amount of stuff that's still there is staggering. And we needed to provide some way to make it approachable for the average layperson. So what we did was we had a lot of these graphs that we took both from the data that you see on the voting records site, But also we took a few charts from TransformTO and we provided a few write-ups as well. You can even interact with some of those charts a bit further up. So you can even see the categories, the amount, like the items that were discussed, like the amount of items that were discussed, and how many votes were cast towards across, no votes as an example. The whole point of the voting records site is to make it so that way we can motivate concerned citizens to more easily participate in their democracy besides just casting a ballot. And we wanted them to more easily be able to contact their councillors. And what we did was we came up with a contact form so that way you can put in your name, your email, you can select the councillor that you want to talk to and whatever action of interest you want to tell your counselor, thank you for voting this or whatever else. And when you click generate, and also your postal code, and when you click generate, it gives you this template that if you click on the send email button after you've edited it or changed anything in this, it will open it in an email client, or you can just copy and paste this and put it inside of another email service provider like Gmail. So this button would open up like Mail or Outlook or Thunderbird or whatever email client that you have. And with that, I am going to take that over to.
Thanks, Adam. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. So just to wrap up, we did make a public resource folder. So if you scan that QR code, it's a public Google Drive, and there was a lot of lessons learned through this project. It took us about a year. Quite literally, we started like early February. So it's been a long project, but a lot of things were learned. So we're going to populate this folder over time with anything that might be helpful for other groups working on similar types of projects. And then the second thing is this is completely volunteer run. So we're hoping to get more volunteers to keep this website up to date because new items come in each month. And there are some small features to still implement on the website. It's not a finished website. And that is everything. So thank you. And that's the link at the bottom there to get access to the site.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to the whole team. What a great service you've provided here. And very much enjoying the team energy. Amazing to find out what you all individually did as well. We do have some time for some questions. So Alex, do you want to take a round? Yes. But they also need a mic. Oh, it's difficult. Oh, but my mic. Okay. Probably easier for, yeah, okay, great. So if you wouldn't mind passing this to whoever is speaking, okay. I will now just be silent.
Do we have any questions in the room?
So these were full council votes, right? Would we expect a difference on how councillors vote in committee versus how they vote at a full council vote? And I'm going to sneak in a second question. Do you have some metric for like the size of the impact? Is it $1 million item or is it a $10,000 item?
Yeah, we don't weigh the items by the importance. So some items are a really big deal and others aren't. So it is just, they're all counted as one tally. So that is a limitation. As for looking at committee votes and seeing how councillors vote there, of course, not all 25 councillors and the mayor, not all of them are on the committees. So, for instance, Stephen Holiday, he's not on a committee, thankfully. It takes the final vote to adopt the item. So it doesn't include waiver referrals. It doesn't include amendments. It doesn't include all those details, which sometimes do reveal the true colors of a councillor. So for someone to really understand how a councillor stands, you have to look beyond just the final vote.
And the reason we didn't include any of didn't want to weigh the votes is because we wanted to keep it objective and didn't want to introduce like our subjectivity to the analysis of like how councillors are doing.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to say is that we will, of course, be taking questions online as well. So if you have a question online, please drop a Q or indeed any other letter into the chat. And Rock, we will come to you in a minute or two, depending on questions in the room, for any online questions. Any more in the room?
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. So we're actually also working on a similar project, which is what we're calling a Civic dashboard, where we want to engage interested citizens and make it easier to understand how City Council works, you know, in a few minutes as opposed to, you know, needing a few hours. So my question is, so I have multiple questions, but I'll just ask one, which is for the postal codes. How did you manage to gather the list and you know, map the coordinates to the right wards, given that there's a lack of, you know, open accessible data about postal codes and wards?
Yeah, I think I can answer that one. Yeah, it was pretty difficult to find data set of postal codes with their coordinates. Most of it was either paid or I think the government of Ontario has it, but like it's not public. But I did find a data set of postal codes with their coordinates, and obviously the Toronto Open Data Set has wards and councillors with the coordinates as well. So they were just joined using GeoPandas using their coordinates. We did spot check a lot of the postal codes, and they do match, so that we know the data set of postal codes and their coordinates are accurate. But yeah, they're basically joined on their coordinates.
Also, you may be happy to hear that we're talking to Toronto Open Data team about pushing that information back to Toronto Open Data so that it can be consumed by other projects like yours.
Are there any questions online?
Yes. Joseph, please go ahead with your short question.
Sure, yeah. I hope I'm coming through, right?
You are?
You are, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, first of all, I think the website is super cool. So great work. And I'm definitely bookmarking this for later. I'm wondering regarding the form-based email tool that you showed at the very end, if you've considered mirroring those emails on your own site. I know there's a project in Massachusetts called Maple Testimony, which for anyone interested, I put the URL in chat, but it's just mapletestimony.org. And they do basically what I'm describing, where they allow people to submit comments on legislation that's before their state legislature on the Maple site. And then the submissions that people make there, they still send them through to the normal submission portal or councillor email or whatever. But it allows there to be like a central record of what everybody's saying. And I think they're looking at allowing people to vote on other people's submissions to make it like a little bit more participatory. So I'm wondering if you guys have considered that, or if you think maybe that's conflicting with what you're trying to do with those form submissions.
It's a good question. We actually did think about that, but we specifically designed the form to be as privacy focused as possible and respect the user's privacy. So we intentionally don't even, we actually do collect some information for our own record, but we actually cleanse that information of personal data after 30 days. And on top of that, when you actually click the send email button, it doesn't send it through the website. It actually opens it in your email client so that you can send it directly from your email account to the counselor. So there's definitely value in what you're saying, but that's not the approach that we took. We really were focused on the user's privacy.
We also didn't want the website to send emails on behalf of the user in case that causes any other problem security-wise or anything else, and especially spamming counselors with like the same email multiple times over could be a problem, could maybe downplay what we're trying to do as well. So we just kept it in the email client and allowed other people to maybe edit it themselves or to send it through whatever means that they wish to as well. So yeah.
Any questions in the room? And if you have a question online, please post a Q and we'll come back to you in a minute.
Thank you so much for this showcase and presentation. It's wonderful to see the full picture of the project. I was wondering, how long was the duration of the project in total? And are there any key learnings that are like stand out in your mind as key factors of being able to pull this off?
Okay. I would say that development in earnest probably started, I want to say maybe like September, August, probably like September, definitely. And then from there, it was just getting the design down and then iterating on a bunch of features and then eventually landing on what we have now. And yeah, so. Did you want to?
I would just say that as far as pulling it off, like one thing that helped with this team was we were meeting consistently every week. And Anna was putting in a lot of work to organize that and like pulling people together for that. So that was part of it, is just kind of having a consistent commitment that was ongoing. I think from my perspective, the thing that really pulled it together was, or kind of from the development side of things, like in September, was like Mitch joining the team and kind of just going ahead with a direction for things. I think that was kind of like that for a lot of things. It sort of just hinges on somebody has to make a decision on some of these things. And once somebody makes a decision, you could even change the decision, but it's like everyone can kind of iterate on it and bounce on it. So just sort of getting past that inertia of like who's going to do, like, commit to something when everybody wants to go in a different direction, maybe a little bit. So I think for it was kind of persistently meeting and sort of like drumming on it until, you know, people started like stepping up and making, just like committing to certain directions.
I think we've got time for two very quick questions, if that's all right. I know there's one in the room here and I know there's one online, but don't worry, because the team has very kindly said that they will join us as a main breakout so that you can continue to ask questions or kind of elaborate on the questions in a breakout after this. So two very quick questions, one in the room, please.
So council is meeting today, even right now, finalizing the budget vote. How long does it take for the votes today to appear on the website? And how automated is that, or does it really require a lot of human connections to be made and editing and so forth?
Yeah, so that part is done manually. So we have a research team. It's myself, Yen, and a couple others from Climate Fast. So we're more climate folks and less coding folks. And so we go through the open data, do the key word search that Rakeem was talking about. And we, probably a month after council, after we've researched it, gone through all the items and made a decision on, okay, what actually impacts emissions, what relates to climate, then we upload it into Web Command. And so it's about a month after council happens. So there is a bit of a lag. I forget the second part of what you were saying.
How automated? How automated is it?
We had this conversation yesterday in our Monday meeting. How automated do we want to make it? Because it is very labor intensive, but it is kind of a deeper discussion that I don't think we've properly concluded, but we are figuring that out.
Yeah, just to touch on it really quickly, there are a lot of steps that can be automated to speed up that time from when the data appears in open data and the research team has time to go through it. And so we do have plans to semi-automate the process, but the research team feels strongly, and I agree, that there should be a manual touch and a manual review to really make sure that the data that ends up on the website is of the right quality. So we'll leave it at that, but we can discuss it more in the breakout if you're interested.
Thank you very much. And I see we have one more online. Is that right, Rock?
Yeah, we have one online. Go ahead, Ashish.
I wanted to ask, and this is an open question, not only to the team that's doing the development work, but to all the other team members and all the other members that are there over here also. It's basically trying to figure out how do we try to consolidate ourselves towards a direction. So basically, this team has gone ahead and only done environmental related bills and policies being proposed. There's another team that's only working at listing all the other bills that are being put up in the city related to cycling. There's another team that's going towards another thing. How do we as Civic Tech, we overall want to have like a plan, or do we want to have an overarching strategy, or do we all have like a plan wherein we somehow come up with something consolidated, not just like a piece by piece by piece, or at least we can make an open process there. If a bill comes in, it's automatically given to everyone rather than just one. Sorry, it's open forum discussion for all of us. Like, how do we get together, not just do it in isolation?
That might be a perfect question for a breakout group, if you don't mind, Ashish, if that's okay with you. We've kind of run out of time here, but it's such an open question and an interesting one that I think, and it would involve lots of other voices. So I wonder if we keep that for the breakout. Keep that in your minds, folks. And that can be the first question in the breakout, but good question. Can I just say a huge thank you to the team here for coming and talking to us today. Fabulous presentation, really great answers to the questions. So a round of applause, please, for the team. And yeah, we'll welcome you back to a breakout soon.